everyone. How's it going? Because I now have control of all of you, I'm going to say a few things before I start reading. First of all, I'd like to give, since it's sort of the culmination of my creative writing major, I'd like to give a few shout-outs and thank yous to people. Thank yous to the professors I've had over the years. Professor Gentry, who unfortunately is not here, she was the very first professor I ever had at Geneseo, and as I like to say, very first class, I was a half an hour late to. So, auspicious beginnings. I'd like to give a thank you to Maria Lima, who's sitting here, Queen of Marxism. I would like to give a shout out to Lynn Smith, Queen of Poetry. Another person who also is not here, I would like to give a shout out to Rachel Hall, Queen of Editing. So thank you very much for that. I'd like to give a shout out to people who have helped me throughout my career here. Amelia Taylor-Sweet is sitting right there, Neha Marolia, Megan Grant, Kazon Robinson, Marley DeRosia. Lots of people, too many to name, unfortunately, but I love you all. Thank you very much. So going into this, I'd like to give just a few warnings. So as Lizzie mentioned, this talks a lot about sexuality, gender dysphoria. So those can be uncomfortable topics for sure. If at any point you feel like you need to step out or you can take a break, there's no shame in that, feel free. So this is a multi-genre piece as a whole titled Be As Gay As You Want. So I'll let you take that as you will. So this is the first vignette, and I hope you like it. At the age of 5, I asked Grandpa, when we're born, how does our moms know what our name is? How do they know what to tell the doctor when we come out? And Grandpa, mechanic, trunk driver, fishing enthusiast, bastion of manhood, and arbiter of all the world's knowledge, smiled in a way that made his entire face crinkle up, made the white hairs stick out from his nostrils, made his chin, already sharp, jut out like a jetty. It was a smile that never failed to make me wiggle with delight. According to the rest of the family, Grandpa and I had the same smile, a smile passed down through history. It's in the blood, Grandma would say. All the men have it. Your father, your siblings too. Grandpa smiled and told me that when we're born, our names are imprinted on our skin in permanent ink, invisible, except to those who love us. That's why the doctor's got to ask the parents. The parents are the only ones who can read the name. To them, it's as clear as day, written out in giant red letters. I had to stop and think for a second. When we're born, we come out with our names written on us in red ink that the doctors can't see because they don't love us enough. It sounded absolutely ridiculous. So of course I bought it hook, line, and sinker. The idea fascinated me. I wondered, how did it get there? When in the production cycle did God bust out the complete book of baby names and go to town? What happened if your parents couldn't read? What if they were blind? Did the doctors have to call in an uncle? My family spent our summers on the beaches of Cape Ann, Massachusetts. We lounged in the sand, tourists among the pale, flab-tummied tourists. As my brothers and I slipped into the water, I kept my eyes on their backs, chest, arms, trying to catch a glimpse of the red ink among the peach buds. I found nothing. Not on them, nor on my mother, nor on my father. And for a time, I wondered if this meant that I didn't love them enough. In the bathtub, I searched my own body, twisting and turning to see every inch of every limb. I found myself there and wondered about that too. Embarrassing to say, but I kept my faith until 6th grade, when on a pop quiz to name as many specific parts of the human body as I could in 3 minutes, I jotted down the invisible name tattoo before arms, legs, or even head. My teacher, an aging priest, didn't approve of such language, tattoo, and kept me after class. When I explained what I meant, he laughed so hard I feared he might be going up to meet Jesus. So the truth had come out. Names weren't printed, handed down from above, etched in skin like a scar. Names were arbitrary, decided on a whim, indefinite. Grandpa was wrong. Or so I thought. It took me until I tried to change my name to see how permanent the ink truly was. It took me until years later to understand that the stamps were real. I was just blind to them, I guess. Everyone else could see my name, my birth name, my real name, loud and clear. Why else would they keep calling me by it, no matter how many times I correct them? What was once a fascination became a fear. Whenever I took off my clothes, I imagined my birth name appearing on my chest, between breasts or across hips, deep red like a cattle brand. I stopped looking at myself naked, started hiding my body beneath bath water. Take deep breaths to smother nausea. Don't smile, Grandpa, smile. But my first boyfriend's bedroom was filled with mirrors. He loved to look at himself, but it took until our 4th date for him to ask why I closed my eyes when stripping. It took until the 6th for me to tell the truth. But there are some things that can never be explained, because I'm not good with words, and even if I was, having the words and actually saying them aloud are as similar as seeing the moon and walking across it. I don't know how to say that when I changed my name, in the back of my mind, I expected my body to change with it, like flipping to a new entry in the dictionary. Expected to wake up with new eyes, grasping blankets with new fingers, breathing with new lungs to expand a new chest. I don't know how every walk through a clothing store becomes a lesson in redundancy, knowing that I am barred from half the store, and even if I were not, no flashy outfit can make this body less ugly. I do not know how to say that the only manly thing I own are video games, because when your hair is pulled because it's too long, or you are mocked for the high lilt of your voice, or shoved for the swing of your walk, you wish for this world to become the fantasy. Because video games are the safe haven. Because you control the story. Because enter name here. Because all it takes to change genders is a few clicks, and when it asks if I am sure, I say, yes, I am sure. Yes, I am sure. Yes, I am sure. But then I dare to open my eyes while I take off my clothes, and the penis is still there. And there can never be a brand between my breasts, because there are no breasts, and there are no hips. But there's a name, imprinted on ID cards, lease agreements, the lips of my parents and siblings every time they see me. There is a cage, and my grandfather smiled. Thank you. This next one is a little bit happier, and this was the very first story that I wrote for this collection. Tanya, the cashier at the mobile station, wears 10 colors in her hair. Late at night, clutching her pillow, Julie smiles and names each one. But during the day, Julie opens her notebook and tries to turn the Technicolor memories into poetry. Blue like X, red deeper than Y, the pink of Z, but finding the right words becomes as futile as high school calculus. In those moments, all she can think about is the fluid motion of Tanya's arm as she rings up a bag of M&Ms. Chair-sized. A Hallmark movie in the making. Julie will take what she can get. Fairy tale romance or not. Born on a Kansas corn farm and transplanted into the gay capital of New England for a month-long writing fellowship, she's learned to pick her battles. Provincetown exists outside of reality, or outside of her reality at least. She's never seen so many rainbow flags on one street, never seen so many bald men holding hands, never seen a store sell weed grinders, gallon bottles of lube, and peeing Calvin t-shirts in the same aisle. But the highlight of her days are the midnight trips to the mobile station. A quest to feed 2 addictions. 1, to multicolored chocolate pills, and 2, to Tanya's smile. Julie feels like the female James Bond of legend as she prowls, ducking between the cookie and candy aisles without a sound. She takes as long as possible to pick up her one item, sneaking glances through the shelves at the register where Tanya sits, texting. She looks at Tanya, unless Tanya is looking at her, because Julie is not ready to make eye contact. Someday she will be, just not now, or ever. Until one night, as she reads the back of the Lay's plastic bag for the 10th time that week, Julie hears a voice in her ear. M&Ms again, girl? Julie yelps and jumps to attention. Tanya is within reach, leaning against a shelf, arms crossed and all 10 colors in sight. She has Julie trapped in the aisle, stuck between the potato chips and the beer cooler. There's a thick silence between them until Tanya clicks her tongue, which hits Julie like a whip in the ass. Yes, Julie tries, realizing she's crushing her bag of candy nearly hard to burst the air out of it. She stuffs the bag in her pocket, then thinks that probably looks like she's trying to shoplift and takes it back out. They're good. She makes herself laugh. Did we go to high school together or something? Julie imagines sitting with Tanya under the bleachers. No, I don't think so. Yeah, me either. With that accent of yours, Tanya says, twisting her salty Boston vowels into a mock southern growl. Julie's face burns and Tanya smirks. It just seemed like the simplest explanation as to why you keep stalking me. Stammering before she even knows what she's going to say, Julie spits out, I wasn't. I know I'm hot as hell. But Tanya flips a blue braid out of her eyes, then, still grinning, points at Julie's face. And you're red as hell. I mean, of course it is, Julie says, eyes on Tanya's lips. You're accusing me of, I don't know, but something. You've got a nice chin. That strikes Julie like a tranquilizer dart. She touches her chin, sharp and bony, as if feeling it for the first time. The last time someone commented on her chin, it was her brother pointing out a pimple. Thanks, she says. You too. You know, Tanya says, leaning in, my shift only goes from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. I've got the rest of the day free. She pauses. Rest of the night, too. Julie tries not to explode. Silence. Is this your first time doing this? Yes, says Julie. She has no idea what this is. Tanya giggles, and Julie assents. Well, country girl, if you're free tomorrow morning, she waited for Julie to nod. How about we meet up at the Kohai Cafe? 10 o'clock? Bring your chin. You bring your hair, Julie shoots back. Tanya snorts and walks away. I'll try to remember, she calls over her shoulder, before her rainbow locks disappear behind a shelf of salsa jars. And Julie just stands there, still stuck in place between the potato chips and the beer, legs shaking and mouth drying up. She has to take a moment just staring at her reflection in the cooler, trying to shake herself back into reality, and lets out a way too girly squeak and dances in place. You gonna buy those M&Ms or what? Tanya shouts across the store. Julie nearly falls on her face, but catches herself and scurries over to the counter. Thank you. This next piece, all I'll say about it is that it's weird, and prepare yourself. Jace, winky emoji with tongue stuck out. Friday, 5:26 p.m. Hey, winky emoji.
Hey, heart emoji.
Did you get that pic I sent last night?
Yes. God, you're so ducking hot. Fucking Patrick Mark.
How come you didn't send one back?
Too busy. Winky face emoji, tongue emoji, sweat drop emoji.
With what?
The fuck you think?
Oh! Selfish. Emoji with the steam coming out of its nose.
You're gonna get Ortega's tomorrow, right? Kim said the party's back on. She's making vegan chicken. I can show you something after that. Winky face emoji.
What's a vegan chicken wing? Heart face emoji.
Something of cauliflower. But that pic was like, yes. Would have been even better if I was sure. Come to the party like that, I could show you off. How does that sound?
So good. What else are you gonna do to me?
Once we get out of there, I'm gonna rip off those tiny shorts.
Please.
Gonna grab you and make you beg. Made it, I won't even wait until we leave. Maybe we'll do this in front of everyone. Destroy your ass while they're watching.
God, I'm so friggin' hard.
How hard?
5:40 p.m.
Spent?
5:51 p.m.
Hello?
6:07 p.m.
Question mark?
Sorry, my mom made me go wash the dishes. Super hard. Sweat drop emoji. Thank you. So this next one was a promise that I made to people. This is a poem about Scrappy Doo. I worked on it for years, really. And the title of this is "My Genitalia is Like Scrappy Doo." It's annoying, demands attention, is always starting shit where shit does not need to be start, and I hate it. Thank you. And here is the last piece. Kara keeps a quote above her mirror, scribbled out onto a thin strip of paper. Be as gay as you want. And another below their mirror, in crimson glitter ink. Aliens don't give a fuck about the gender binary. They repeat the words under their breath, quiet whispers to the toothpaste-stained sink. Kara hasn't stepped into a church since 7th grade at Ursuline Academy. The same place they've been laughed at when they asked the nuns to call them Kara instead of Chris. The same age they've been told that not wearing makeup was the first step in dying unloved and alone. And this is a more fervent prayer, a more holy sacrament than any priest can give them. They repeat the words as they swipe the electric razor over their scalp once, twice, 3 times, letting scraggly blonde bangs fall like dead leaves. Kara is nearly 25. This isn't their first rodeo. Soon the sink is flooded with hair and they can feel the air sweep clean over their head. It's become a ritual at this point for Kara to shave their head at the start of every summer, right before the tourists start pouring in. Around the locals, a shaved head is passé. But around the tourists, those comfortable white Democrats, watching Kara like they're a new species, an alien come to destroy the world. And Kara lets them watch. They smile, hold their bald head high. These tourists, they're never quite sure what box to place Kara in, just the way Kara likes it. They're too cute to stay trapped in a box anyway. Thank you.
Will has to ask the first question.
I'll ask the first question. Why am I so cute? The answer, because.
Harley.
Perfect answer. Okay, so this is a question for all of you. The headbands, headdresses, this is obviously planned and you're obviously rocking them all, but was that a way to just like form a unity among your reading, or was it actually like, just tell me about your headbands and their choices. I'm really intrigued. If you're really intrigued.
Well, the first thing I want to say is that we spent 2 hours at Walmart yesterday buying these. But they've been a planner for a while. I want to say about a month. We just sort of had written down flower crowns because we thought it fit sort of the queer aesthetic. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Yeah, we, in the beginning stages when we were talking about haunts, I said, I want to match. I want something to match. And they were like, okay, Gab, something to match. And we were talking about our haunts, and then we started joking about Lizzie making a flower crown out of rocks. And then we were like, okay, well, what if we somehow themed our crowns to our haunts? So mine has a shit ton of leaves because I have issues with trees in my writing. And
mine has sort of bright neon colors. Match my leggings.
I glued rocks onto mine.
Yeah, so that's what I came for.
Some of them fell off.
They're beautiful. Thank you.
So for all 3 of you, you all have these haunts, and they revolve around things that happen in your life. But it seems, especially your writing was like there's both the moment when you're reminded of the haunt and then the moment that you write about it. Do you write about it because you're thinking about it, or do you write about it very close to when you're reminded of it? So like when, for instance, is it when you're anxious about something, or when something happens that you know will later make you anxious and you're thinking about it?
So that's a good question, first off. Secondly, I don't know. I think I write more often when I'm anxious as a way of processing whatever my brain is doing. But a lot of the times when I'm writing, the stuff I'm writing about is stuff that's been sitting with me for a really long time. A couple of poems are not like that. Sometimes when there is a mass tragedy, I write kind of immediately after as a way of processing it. Sometimes I don't. It varies a little bit. But usually a lot of the poems come off either out of like a moment of, well, I don't know. They follow moments of anxiety. When I'm like super anxious, I'm certainly not writing, but sort of following that moment when I'm dealing with it.
I know that I overthink a lot, especially when sort of issues are going on with my life. But I've tried to make a habit of when I've experienced something that's new, I try and open up a document and legit write down, this is what it feels like to experience this, and put down like sensory details. And then later on, if I'm working up to a story, I sort of have a basis to go off. And oftentimes, I mean, an example of this thing I read, the prompt for me that I gave myself was like, I want to write snapshots in queer life. So I tried to take those details and put them onto fictionalized characters and see how they would do with that.
Yeah, as for me, I think that my writing process surrounding my haunts is I just will have these images in my brain, just these images that I need to get out, or these kind of snapshots in my brain, and they're often very abstract, and I just need to get them out on paper, and they often just feature my haunts, and then I realize it afterwards.
This is more of a personal request than a question. But Lizzie, could you send me your writing samples?
Alright. Can't do.
Is that a yes?
Yeah. I'll do it.
Okay, this is specifically a question for Will. So, your reading, firstly, was hilarious and wonderful and heartwarming and heart-touching.
We
You did a
love you,
fantastic
Will.
job. Just your reading in general, everybody. Compliments.
Stand up.
But with your writing, Will, you took a very non-fiction route, and I was very honored to witness your non-fiction, because I've only really heard your poetry and your spoken word, and that's so beautiful. And seeing another shift into another genre was really inspiring for someone that tries to do both and kind of fails at both. But with your writing, I guess, how did you choose the pieces to go together today? Are these just pieces that you've been working on for a while? They were definitely in conversation with each other regarding the identity that you prefaced at the start of your reading. But I guess just your creative process of choosing which ones to put in here.
So two-part answer to that. First off, I find it very flattering that you said that was nonfiction, because about 1% of that was nonfiction. I'd say really the only part of it that was nonfiction was gay and gender dysphoria, and then just sort of put it on characters. So thank you, that's flattering to me.
Well, I knew the third person one was obviously not a nonfiction piece, but...
With the other part of the question about sort of how I pick things. So in the original first draft of this, there was lots of stories that I cut out. Because what I realized was, and I wrote this back in January, and I was sort of taking a lot of pride in sort of my bisexuality at that time. I was writing a lot of stories about just sort of queer relationships. But then as the reading was approaching, and I said to myself, maybe I want to write one or two new ones. I realized that just because my situations in my life had changed, the big issue in my life right now was gender dysphoria. So when I tried to write about shit, guess what? It's all about gender dysphoria. So in the end, when it comes down to what I picked the piece about the two in the mobile station because I thought that when I made the first draft, that was everyone's favorite, so I picked that. I picked the piece about Kara shaving her head because I liked the be as gay as you want, and I liked the last line. I thought it made a good ending. I picked the texting one because I thought it was funny and it was experimental. And then the Scrappy Doo one. The other one was the name one, with the grandpa. That one was inspired by the picture that was on the board. I wanted to write something. I had come up just sort of with the idea in my mind of someone with gender dysphoria dealing with the image of themselves in a bathtub naked. And I wanted to build that into a piece, and the rest of the piece, and I was thinking to myself, sort of, what central conflict could I build that around? And then I came up with the idea of the printed name. So that's sort of where those came from.
Even did Shannon the grandfather's name though?
My grandfather passed away unfortunately when I was 6 years old. So I do not remember a lot about him. But as far as I do remember, he had an exceedingly round face. So I do not think he had a very sharp chin. That was just a...
So it was.
Yeah.
Well, because you guys are talking about haunts and being haunted, I was wondering if you could immediately explain your poetic lineage, whose work has influenced yours? What were the precursors, right? And how do you think that has come through in the work that you produce now?
Yeah, I can start. I'm very heavily influenced by fantasy writers. Anyone who's ever shared a class with me hears me rant about it. I really love fantasy work. I love fiction. And I think that bleeds a lot into my poetry. I think my poetry itself developed a lot during workshop. I think seeing, 100 other writers at Geneseo, former writers, writers being published at Geneseo, workshopping, seeing everyone else's work, really exposed me to like a lot of different styles. And I also just troll around the Poetry Foundation website randomly a lot, so there's that too.
In terms of poetic lineage for me, it's a hard question because I've never been one of those people that sort of follows an author. I sort of bounce around from piece to piece, and I'm like, oh, I like that. That's cool too. I taught myself how to write through fan fiction, so it's just sort of like an amalgamation of like 14-year-olds on the internet. In terms of people who sort of, the one person I can say that really inspired me in terms of poetry to go into poetry was Kimberly Walters, who was very big a few years ago because she was sort of the head of Twitter poetry. She went under the handle A Real Live Ghost. And I was really inspired both by, the big thing with her was how grotesque her shit was. She was not afraid to talk about the body very plainly and put it into these very weird, disturbing situations. And at the time, seeing that imagery in my head was like, holy shit, I didn't know poetry could be like this. So when it comes to poetic lineage, I say bounce around, but if I had to pick one person that probably influenced me like proportionally more than others, it would have to be Kimmy Walters.
So I do a lot of poetry and creative nonfiction, so the people who inspire me are kind of on both sides of that. Joan Kane, who visited the campus like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, she has this way of writing poems that include nature, but are not like overly naturey, and often would like use geologic language. So I find her work to be pretty important to me. Other favorite writers are like Eula Biss, who does poetry and creative nonfiction. I'm blanking. Mary Roach, who does science writing. She has a really cool novel called Stiff that's all about death. And so I feel like those people kind of help most with sort of my lyricness in both genres, and then sort of the science writing and geology writing approach. And then in terms of the more like political poetry, that's like full on like Evan Goldstein, Diego, Robbie, like all the people who graduated last year who were in Gorilla, Izzy, who has not graduated yet. All those people have like super political poems, and I did not write super political poems because I was scared. And then I met them, and then I was like, oh yes, this is a thing that we should be doing, or that I should be doing. So, yeah.
That does remind me one thing to add to my poetic lineage. I will say, so I sucked at poetry. I mean, depending on who you ask, I still stuck in poetry. But I got better at poetry when I entered the Geneseo Poet Society, of which I am the leading president. The next president is actually in the back of the room right now. And so I got to thank actually Ella Moscow for inviting me to the Poet Society for the first time. But being in the Poet Society allowed me to sort of meet loads of different poets and practice my craft every single week. So thank God for Geneseo Poet Society.
Callie, I forgot to name Callie. I don't know how I forgot to name Callie.
Callie Sawyer?
Yeah. More than any of them. Yeah. Any other questions?
Jason?
This is a question for Gabe.
Gabe.
Your poem on rust. I was really interested in the imagery and the choice of it. May I ask how that connected to your haunting through your reading?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. A big haunt in my poetry is interpersonal conflict, and a big one for me is assault, and that I think that followed me into that piece. That piece for me was kind of a meditation on. I have very abstract ideas when I'm writing. It was kind of a meditation to me on the harm and the corrosive nature of words from toxic men that have been in my life. Yeah, so that's where that came from. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kayla?
This is for you, Mo. This started with you, Paul. I am so interested in where you came up with that idea.
You want to hear the story?
Yeah, poem.
Yeah, you want to hear the story of the poem?
Yes.
I mean, it's not much of a story. I mean, I have a lot of intrusive thoughts, which often take the form of non sequiturs. So I was making macaroni and cheese one night, and the phrase came into my head, genitalia like Scrappy Doo. And I was thinking to myself, how are these two things similar? So I went onto my computer and I texted my friend Alex, I have a poem title. My genitalia is like Scrappy Doo. And he said, this sounds like a very silly poem, you should write it. And I was like, okay. And then originally it ended on the just the line, always starting shit where shit does not need to be start. But I thought that was too soft of an ending and did not appropriately show what Scrappy Doo's role in the world is. So that's when I added the final line, which is, as we remember, and I hate it. Of course. Colin's going to print it in the New Yorker, just you wait.
All right, unless there's any other questions. Was that a question?
I'm just curious. What are your star signs?
I'm Aries.
Leo represent.
I'm a Virgo.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you all so much for coming to support us.
Next week there's a senior reading at 5 in Brody.
Brody 231?
221.
221.
At 5:30.
5. Jeez. They're reading. They're great. Their reading is called Variable Stars. It's going to be stellar.
Yeah, please. We have plenty of food left. Feel free to go eat it, squirrel it away with you. We'll be hanging around for a few minutes. So have a good night.
Thank you so much for coming.